for that.
To me,
Yeah,
they emailed me yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I was gonna start so that we can introduce them. And so.
Somebody need a
But
copy.
it should still say open. Yeah, we'll print it out bigger and nice. So, would it be, do you want to introduce yourself first, or would you like to? Introduce yourself?
I can introduce myself. I'm Nicole Hall. I've been with Community Services full-time since 2007. My current role, besides being interim director, is the Operations and Events Manager. So I will let you know that we have completed our search process for a director. And as of this morning, it's confirmed that Nick Cleash from Portland will be joining us, and his projected start date is February 3rd. So I envision that I'll be at probably the next meeting as well, just to kind of usher him into it. So
Does he work at Portland?
Portland, yeah, his role in Portland is Recreation Director.
So the title is Community Services Director?
What's that?
The title will, of him, his title.
Will be Community Services Director, yeah.
Thank you. So we probably will see you this month and next month.
Yep.
Or March next meeting. So I'm Jessica Sargent. I'm the current chair, but we need to have elections today. So I will pass it off to the person who was the chair for over 20 years.
Yeah, for 20, yeah, I was the chair. We really, yeah. Sue Foley Ferguson and Nicole and I just introduced, we know each other. So.
Doug Williams. I'm Rick Murphy.
Maggie Vishnu.
And no problem.
Nice to meet everybody.
And this is the current Parks and Land Conservation Board. Because we will be getting a new member. Yep. For a little bit. I don't see any public. But we can have, if we do get members, I don't see anybody online.
Nope.
Is anybody missing? No, just usually the land trust phone.
Yeah,
And so we can have public comment at the end. I did hear from the land trust, they are likely to come forward with an application in the March meeting. I heard from them last night. So no public comments. Moving on to approval of minutes from the November 14th meeting. The recording and the minutes are online and also sent those as a separate email to the group. Any motion to approve?
I move to approve. Second.
Any discussion?
Good, thank you.
Thank you for doing that. All in favor? Next is board elections. We could have done it this month, or we can hold off until March, but March seems a little far away. This year we need a vice chair, a chair, and a secretary. Correct? So there's going to be a change in that this year we need a secretary position. And that's because we don't have a consistent notes taker. Todd used to do it, but we don't have that this year. So if people have thoughts.
Sounds amazing.
thankless job.
sounds amazing.
I think it has gotten slightly less onerous with the recordings being available, so the minutes do not need to be as detailed as they have in the past.
It's really just like action items that are really supposed to go on the minutes. I know that Todd wouldn't take them during the meeting. He would just watch the meeting afterwards so that he could actually concentrate on the meeting. That's half the battle sometimes. So.
Yeah.
Well, that's my biggest objection to this, to the concept of a secretary of these committees. I mean, I realize these committees need minutes. But to have members of the committee taking minutes, that person's not participating. I mean, I've done it many times.
It's
I
hard
mean,
to
you
participate.
just, you know, I mean, you're mostly, Did I get that comment? I think the comment,
Is
you're not
there-
thinking about what's going on, it's just the way it is. And we don't have enough members, honestly, to
Right.
play that game. I think it's inappropriate.
Is there a way at the end of the meeting to have a standing agenda item that says we all, collectively, these are the action items? These are the action items we agreed to. And then that becomes our minutes.
We can try, but we usually are down to the wire in the last 1 minute.
Yeah.
It's as a group.
So is this a town structure where all committees have these three? Is that the deal?
Most committees have.
And that we're just being told to, yeah, follow all the other committees? Okay.
So we honestly, I mean, I had to admit my ignorance. of this. But our planning board, honestly, a member of the planning board has to take the minutes every week.
I have no,
No,
There's
none.
not a secretary of the plan.
I mean, that's just insane.
There's a chair and vice chair. Yeah, at least when I was in the planning board the last couple of years, we didn't have one.
Yeah,
Does somebody
that
from the
would
town
just-
clerk's office sit there?
Yes,
that would just.
Right, they take.
for
probably.
the,
Yes.
like, the,
Yep.
I don't wanna say bigger, but for the bigger boards, I believe that's the
Yeah.
case.
yep, town plan.
Overseeing $6 million isn't as important.
Yeah, it's actually somebody from the planning office that does it.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay,
We just don't have a consistent staff liaison this year, which is why we need somebody on the board to do it. So it wouldn't be forever.
Oh, it's not forever?
Yeah, it's just, I think just this year. I mean, we've got a onboard, a new liaison, staff liaison, which, I mean, you all know. In my personal opinion, it took me a year to really get up to speed on this board. So to have that person trying to take notes while we introduce them to the board, I think is not
definitely.
realistic.
Nicole, how soon after the meeting is this recording available?
I would like to say instantaneously. I think the delay is in the upload to YouTube, so a day at the most. In my instructions, I'm supposed to email it to IT and let them know it's good to go, and then it's my impression that basically the next day it's up.
Okay. And am I right that the minutes only need to contain action items?
Correct. Yeah.
So this last one is,
And the way I saw Todd doing the minutes, and that's the way I followed it, was he literally took the agenda
Yeah,
and
that's,
just wrote right next to it, which was nice. It wasn't like it had to be any sort of crazy format.
take the minutes and just type next to it, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
and I mean, a lot of them was like, he wrote like discussed or reviewed or,
Yeah.
yeah, tabled. exactly.
So not asking anyone to take minutes during the meeting is just so we try to do it a week before the meeting so that people have a chance to look at the minutes before the meeting. So within 3 weeks, going through the agenda and discuss, table, and if there was a vote, approved.
Well, I can do it, but remember that I'm done at the end of this year. So it's like 4 meetings for me. I don't mind doing it, but it will be very rudimentary. It will be the essentials. And the details, you're just gonna have to go back to your own notes or.
I think it does lot.
Thank you.
I mean, I don't want to put the onus on a member, so I'm happy with that. I think that's a good compliment to, if you want detailed information, go to the recording.
Yep.
And I'm happy to continue to serve as chair if you want me. I don't know. Yes.
Well, I would nominate Jessica for chair.
A second.
A third,
Fourth. And Sue, do you want to be? if you
Sure.
Need to be vice chair? I nominate
wonderful, thank you.
Sue as
I
vice chair.
second,
Um,
Third.
So would we like to vote?
I don't get a
on-
fourth.
fourth,
Okay, thank you.
Jeez. Do we need to vote individually or do we want to just vote as a single package?
single package.
Okay, all in favor?
most powerful leadership crew in the town hall, Scarborough.
Thank you, everyone. So Scott, we had,
Can I ask a question?
yes, sorry, sorry.
Just, I have a question about this, doesn't know a title. This,
oh, it doesn't have a title, this,
I don't know, budget's not the right word, but whatever you wanna call this, I don't know.
the authorization report,
There we go.
land bond authorization report.
Yes, thank you. Shouldn't the balance be 8,168,000?
It's because the 2024 bond is not on this, so we can request that addition.
So that bond went into effect January 1st, but the ability to draw off the bond went in January 1st. It didn't go in the day after election.
No, I think it did. They just didn't put it on. They didn't put it on here. So it's the 2019 bond, what's currently sitting in the land acquisition reserve fund, and then we haven't touched the 6 million.
Okay. Can I just make a request that this document, since it's the public document, include the land bond? And whatever the effective date of that, the potential to draw it, become the date of this. I don't, whether that's the day after election or whatever, I don't know whatever it is.
Yes. And that is
But that would be a line item at the bottom.
correct.
Yeah.
You know, not in this, because this isn't accounting, but a line item at the bottom that shows the available
Yes.
bond and going forward,
Yeah, so presumably that would be like whatever, November 10th,
whatever the status. Yeah.
Yeah.
$8 million added.
Well, that wouldn't have been. The bonding wouldn't have been available the day of the election.
I mean, whatever it is, I don't know what November 10th, I don't,
Process, but
Yeah,
that's. okay.
whatever.
Yeah. and maybe it's not even available yet. I don't know.
Remember the details of how that works, but in fact, I think what happens is they kind of turn it on when they don't do anything.
Right.
So technically, it's available right away.
Yeah.
But there's a process they go through here in the town hall to turn it on and use it. So I think from the standpoint, but I think what you're asking for, because I agree, is to know what the available bonding is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, and this is showing how it's spent and what's available.
Right, as a public record, because if, let's say,
Oh,
a
I
community member, other than the land trust, is like, I wanna propose this parcel, does the town have funding to do it?
Yeah.
They can look at this and say, yep.
It's public information.
One more question about this while we're on then. I assume this 800,000 for the 85 Hanson Road, the Silverbrook Preserve, it just hasn't been expended yet from, or it hasn't been bonded
It
yet.
has been issued.
It has been issued, yeah, okay.
So it has been approved by
Issued.
council, but
Yep.
has not been
Yep.
issued, and it is issued when the transaction happens.
When what transaction? When
The
the,
Scarborough Land Trust.
so the land
executes-
trust has not received any money on this.
Do you have a date for closure on that?
No. Hopefully mid-year.
Okay.
This year, but yeah, we have.
Are you still raising money? Is that gotcha.
So the town does not issue any funding until it is requested for closing.
Correct, yeah.
Like,
we would
like
request
with your house, you come with the check, like they don't have a check until closing schedule.
Yeah. sounds
Yeah,
like-
the reason why I was asking is because the other way it could be is that they've already received it, but the town didn't package all the bonds together to put them out.
Well, that's
So-
where it also gets complicated, and
Right.
when the town actually issues
The bonds.
the bond, it gets grouped with a whole lot of other things.
So it might be 2-3 months difference.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sure can.
that's why I was confused about that.
That makes sense.
But what we do is I request from the town liaison that the land acquisition reserve fund balance report is run prior to a meeting. And what we will do is in the next request for the March meeting, we will ask that the 2024 bonding authority be reflected at the bottom of this sheet. And then Norm updates any changes to the balances in any of these. In the 2019, the commitments or the land acquisition fund itself. Like, so for example, the proceeds from the alcohol sale went into that fund. So that's what goes into the acquisition reserve fund. And so that also earns interest, so that gets updated for each meeting. But so the one, gee, the fourth will be the 20th. Are there any other changes that are requested for this form? For Norm?
Well, there's a typo. On Beach Ridge Road, B,
Oh. Great.
sorry, every time I look at it, I
Yeah,
go,
good
should I say something? Should I say something?
No, does that wrap up?
Totally, yeah, thank you. Sorry, that's off agenda. Thank you.
No, and do we want to open it up?
Oh, no,
Off to public
that's number
comment?
9. Number 9A, you took care of it. I like it. And those are hard to get to too, so that's, that's a good.
That's one way of doing it.
That's right.
Do we want to go back to public comment?
Sure.
Are there any public comments?
Actually, I don't have any comments at this time. So, thank you.
So we are now on to 7, creating or revising evaluation tools for all of the authorized land run uses. I'm not sure if this is the. So I put the open space plan down here on 9, but I think that also folds into this discussion. Is how are we approaching the existing evaluation tool, and if we feel it needs any revising, and then discussing whether we should create separate tools for different purposes. So for example, I use historical preservation because it's kind of its own category. Or if we think there should be a historical preservation component of the existing evaluation tool. Just sort of like getting people's thoughts and then how we approach this over the next year. Because I anticipate with the most significant land bond that the town has had, we might get interest in areas that we haven't had in the past. And as we discussed last year, we want to make sure all applications for funding come through this board. So we kind of have to be prepared for those, or at least have a plan for those types of applications.
Mhm.
That's. I feel like Doug understands the mechanics of the tool the best. Do you think we should revise the existing tool to include other categories? Or do you think it would behoove us to have separate evaluation tools?
If we have something come in, and first of all, the tool does have questions that regard all these things, because we did that on purpose.
Yeah.
However, it's really silly if we're looking at easements on biking trails, to do the entire analysis. Providing easement, but if we're talking about purchasing a piece of land that includes biking trails, I think we should do the analysis. That's just my response. But we could, we are not, with our tool, we are not stuck with a point total being the deciding factor. And, and in fact, I think as a group, we've pretty much decided the point totals are less important than what we're seeing in terms of the numbers that are coming into the report, into the evaluation tool. In other words, that's a significant number, that's significant, and that's significant in terms of connectivity, significant in terms of habitat, significant in terms of those issues. And we're able to say with confidence that we feel that this is valid. So the evaluation tool helps us to sort of quantify some of that feeling and be able to say to someone from the public, yeah, I mean, we evaluated this, and you can see that it gets a lot of points in terms of biking trails. So the tool can be used for that, but I would argue that it should be used for land purchase. Otherwise, it's not necessary to go through the process. I mean, if, you know, if we're looking at a historic site. Evaluating it for habitat, silly. Is it deemed valuable? Now, that said, what makes a particular historical site valuable? And are all biking trails, biking and walking trails the same? No, so some process should be put in place, whether you use the existing tool or something.
So if you look at the historical purchases that have happened already, the Beechridge Schoolhouse, Elder Hall, the Archway. You can see where our
Higgins
tool,
Beach,
yeah,
Very much,
although
very much.
public act, I would have.
That was
argued
public
was Public act.
that's, and it was.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was not evaluated. I mean, we evaluated it, but.
Yeah, but it got
Didn't
this
get-
much for public access, like,
And nothing-
right?
Nothing for anything
And
else.
nothing for
you know?
anything else, right?
But it was
Yeah,
too good an opportunity from the standpoint of public access to let go.
right, right. But I do feel like, and I think our tools work for bike trails and with that, and there is some sort of subjectivity that we provide. But when it comes to historic, first of all, I think we need to guarantee somehow that any requests for monies, historic do come to this committee. How we go about doing that, do we request from the town council, do we get a commitment from the council I'm not really sure, do we speak with just the town manager? Do we put it in a document? I'm not sure, but we need to make sure that, because I think, the public has felt as though things come up that are not public and they're sort of done without any evaluation.
Could it be a charter change?
Well, they actually talked about these sites at the town council, so in a way, it was public. You can argue that it was public, it was just quicker. It was just a quick process,
The sites that you just named, none of those sites were,
came to a committee,
were reviewed by this board, right?
correct,
They all were just, which is in the purview of the town council,
correct,
right?
correct.
So you're, okay,
And I'm not arguing that it wasn't public myself, I'm saying that the perception from the public. So, and maybe you guys disagree with me, but I just feel as though with this kind of money that somebody ought to look at it, historical society. And even if it's just a checklist. Because one of the things that we do at the end of our is we say there should be an easement put on this, permanent easement and da, 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 da. And I think there needs to be a recommendation from anybody who's doing historical preservation that, that the roof line shouldn't change. I mean, if you're going to buy, that church over there and then turn it into, a restaurant, I guess what I'm saying is that if you use the money for a purchase to protect the historical value, then the value has to be evaluated and then you protect the value.
Right.
And I don't, again, we're not the experts on this, but if it came to us, we could certainly go to the historical,
Well, I
we
think-
could ask the
I think
historical
it should come
society.
to us.
Yeah.
And based on our purview, it should come to us. And then we figure out how to evaluate. Who should help.
yeah, so
I was just gonna say, I don't wanna make this too complicated, but is there a way to look at the tool to think about weighting? Are there 2 or 3 threads that we wanna, guidelines that we wanna go through as we evaluate anything? Does it, for instance, does it hit one or more of these categories? Could it be public access that also increases wildlife and habitation? I mean, as a guideline for how we think about it. So that we just give more weight to something that hits more marks than just one thing.
My response to that is, because we talked about it, I think it's obviously a really good concept. We talked about it early on, in fact, it was right after Noah came on the board, because he was saying, do you really want to do this? And he really made us go back and really look at it. And bottom line is, as I said earlier, I think if we use it as a tool, but not as the decider,
Exactly,
Right.
that's what I was thinking,
So-
guiding our discussion.
use it as a tool and, does this in fact have habitat value in addition to biking trails or, that sort of thing? I think that's really our purview. The tool can help us do that, but mostly, we got to go on site. We've got to hear from whoever's bringing it to us, I pointed before to that, but whoever's bringing it to us, we talk to the historical society, we do whatever we can, but in the past, things like historical sites have not been brought to us. So I think the bigger issue is not that we don't have the ability to evaluate, because I think we do. We have the tool, we have us, we have
Right.
resources in the town, with plenty of resources. And that's our role, to use the resources. But natural site things have not, historical site things have not been brought to us. They've been just done.
So let's totally fictitious scenario, okay? Let's say that the Historical Society comes to us and says, we want to, we're proposing $400,000 to buy Alger Hall. Right? So we as a board, our tool is obviously not sufficient to evaluate that. And so we would say, okay, we need some outside expertise to help us understand the things that I think that Sue is talking about what should be permissible if we recommend this, positively. But we can't ask the Scarborough Historical Society because that's them asking money. Right? So I think the question is like,
Who do we?
what do we do? What do we do? Like, do we go to the Portland Historical Society? Do we and maybe that's sort of the conversation that we need to have is that we
Look at similar things
that we-
elsewhere.
Are there other community?
We try to find, I mean, if it's brought to us, we can figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think there's a tool we can put together easily for to do that, because the tool for the historical sites could have, the schoolhouse that we had, and then it has Alger Hall, and then it has an old school building. and then it has
Cemetery.
An
Yeah,
old
so
fire.
that could be a
Yeah.
cemetery.
And a cemetery,
So
and
there's no structure.
so, and I'm not arguing against the tool, I just start thinking about the process of trying to have a tool for all of the various types of historical things, or community, significant.
Yeah, that's
community
really broad.
character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm suggesting is actually not a tool. It's instead a framework where we can request external support in evaluating something if we don't feel like we have the expertise to do it. And getting permission from getting permission from the town council to do that.
Great.
Those are actually two different things, and I don't think you need permission from the town council to ask for outside expertise.
We don't.
Because
Unless
I think that
it's
we-
Unless we have
money.
to pay for it.
Yeah, unless it's
Call up
money.
the historical society and say, come and do a presentation, or ask the land trust to come in and talk about an opportunity. So I think the board can make those decisions as we go. I don't think we need to have a formalized framework in place, partly because they're too varied. I mean, Alger Hall was different than Higgins Beach parking. That's different than Beechwood School. So those are the oddballs that don't really fit in the framework.
Hmm.
The other question is to suspend the normal evaluation. The committee can take respond to a motion to suspend the normal evaluation, to skip it, and to go on to an outside evaluation, not an outside, but a different evaluation process. So we're always free to omit doing the evaluation for this one application.
Hmm.
We can also, in a normal application, we can go through the normal evaluation tool, but then use footnotes to explain why there are particular parameters that make this compelling or not compelling. And those would just be appended to the end of the evaluation or separate from it. But we're always free to add those footnotes in to explain why we really, really think this one is important or not so important. So the three tools that we've talked about, the evaluation tool itself can be skipped and go to a different evaluation technique. The second was the normal framework for making the decision, which we can make as we go. And the third is use the tool, but add footnotes to explain the variation. But all of those things can be determined at the point.
Right. So I've only been through this once. Is it become we each fill it out separately and then discuss it? Is that the way it goes?
Yeah. No.
No?
No.
So tell me,
the rubric we do as a group.
as a group,
And now, over the last couple of them, we're now getting support from the GIS folks. And they're doing more than a third of it,
okay,
kind of filling in some of those answers on the form, and then we sit down.
most
Yeah.
of it's land stuff,
Yeah,
okay.
we
And
sit
then
down
that
with
becomes
that.
public record.
Oh, yeah.
So I like to go through the evaluation tool in advance of the meeting to think through a
I think I
project.
did that too.
But we're not, as members, required to come with a filled out. I just find it helps me in thinking through and participating in the discussion. And review is a strong word. I also look at what Micah does in the GIS to sort of gut check it, like, okay, does this make sense? He sometimes has notes like, well, this is actually a good boundary, it just doesn't score well, for example. Or looking at things that are around, so I like to do it in advance.
He does a good job. with them.
He does a
lot of
great job.
information in those to look at when he, so essentially that evaluation tool is out there with what he could fill in.
Mhm.
So we look at that and then we build from there. And it's
Really?
really,
He's done a great job. I can only think of one issue where we really just need to clarify that if the property bounds on both sides of the river, do we count both sides of the river? But again, that's not his.
No,
He,
that's
he,
us.
he would count one side of the river and we'd say, well, really, there's both sides and let's add it. So that, other than that, he's done a great job.
He has done a great job.
Yeah.
It's very helpful, far faster and more efficient than we used to do it by paper maps, but it's still incumbent upon us to sign off on.
but a framework, I understood Noah's recommendation on the framework as being a sort of a statement of the sort of steps we would take.
Yeah.
Protocol.
And
Yeah.
I like the idea of that because I think putting that down lets people know that we actually have a process for the cemeteries, as opposed to, because anybody who really cares about this and they look at our evaluation tools, and well, you can't evaluate a cemetery with that. It's all conservation. So I like the idea of setting out an outline of a framework of steps we would take
So it's
as we
like
see the
expert witness.
as we see the non-conservation projects.
Yeah, we could have a list of possible external consultants for different groups.
That actually would go into our training materials and be put in the notebook in an appendix. And would be a list of resources that we've come up on or envisioned. I think it's a great idea.
Well, it could be other historical societies, or it could be professors of history. That have expertise in the region or the area or something.
Yeah. What about something like a parking lot? If the beach access came up again, let's say. What's an example of a group like Main Island Trails? Would that be like? I
Town
don't know.
council.
Yeah.
I'm kidding, except that I'm not,
Yeah.
I mean, when it came to,
Yeah.
to Higgins Beach. We did, and they gave it to us, the town manager gave it to us to look at.
But we mostly looked at the two other parcels that were associated
Right,
with it,
associated.
which were kind of down the road.
But there was never any question that the town was gonna do
Yeah, well, let's take that specific, what if that comes back and says they want to buy the property next to that to expand it?
it. We can evaluate that thing, because that, right, that there's connectivity, there's, public access, I mean. I think it'd be neat if they could do that, it won't happen down there, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it could have, down at Pine Point, there's some
Yeah,
issues going on right now, actually.
Yeah,
I think having, it's not a checklist, but we're like.
Outline,
A framework,
A
outline.
framework.
It
outline.
also helps applicants know what we'll be
We're looking
asking,
for.
what we're looking for. I think having that transparency is important. Because if it's,
It's good.
I think there's a new neighborhood association group, say they had something they wanted, and they hadn't been through the process before. We don't want it to be completely, scary. I was trying to come up with a better word, like
Yeah,
like
cumbersome.
cumbersome, yeah.
Overwhelming.
Overwhelming,
Yes, thank you. But by having the process, the framework more transparent, I think we might get more applications.
So I have to ask a question that's, to me, the biggest skeleton in this, and that is this, public areas. Because public areas could be, I think that schools are included in public areas.
Like access?
Nope, the last bullet, to add to
Oh,
existing
in public
conservation in public
areas.
areas. You know,
What does that mean?
I mean, that's language that's been included since the beginning. And
You know, I don't remember, and Sue.
I don't remember
How would
public
we-
areas, which is weird, but
No, well, I remember that.
You do?
that's in there. What I
Yeah.
don't remember is how we
came up with that.
excluded schools and town offices and fire departments and stuff from the bonding.
I think I mean, my understanding was that we really thought it was conservation oriented.
Just don't remember the,
But I don't,
I'd have to go through this thing to determine what's there. Is a good question.
We can't mess with this, is that right? We can't take
that was
take it
the-
off of there?
no,
Yeah,
that's
that's
the,
that was what was voted on.
that was voted on.
it was also in the, yeah, the language was in the
Bond
election.
language.
It's also in the one thing, when I went door to door, the one thing I did hear when I got into conversations with people was, can it be used for ball fields? That's the active recreation, but the public areas and the active recreation, I kind of look at those as a similar thing, people thinking, oh, was this conservation money or was it? You know? But in the past, we left that in there a long time ago, because at the time, Coldwood Farms, there were ball fields plus the conservation area that was gonna be next to the Rachel Carson National Wildlife Refuge. So it was kind of a combo.
Where is that?
Then Coulthard Farms is off of,
Okay, gotcha.
yeah,
Yeah.
Pleasant Hill.
Okay.
And it's actually
It's
right
called
next to the
Wiley-
Benjamins, right next to
Wiley
Benjamins
Field.
And Wiley Field.
and
Wiley,
Wiley,
okay.
yeah.
That's
yeah.
all the same thing you're talking about?
Yes.
Yes,
yeah.
and so part of that is conserved. Now, is there an easement over it? I don't know, but I think, I mean, historically, that's what I remember the conversation. The reason why we left recreation in there is active recreation. We also, active wasn't necessarily football, baseball, you know, sports. It was snowmobiling or biking. We thought of biking as being an active kind of a thing. Passive, we thought of more of just walking and bird watching.
Yeah.
So, but we didn't want to eliminate snowmobile trails over in the West Scarborough.
Mhm.
Because there's a ton of snowmobiles, trails over there and
So public areas was included in the original language.
Doug, so you know more about what you discussed in the open space committee, right? You guys talk about anything? I haven't read it, I have not,
Right.
I haven't reviewed it, so. Have you talked about,
Right.
ways to protect, like, those
Comments on
kind of
the open
active,
Space plan are due on January 15th.
what's that?
Comments on the open space plan are due on.
It is out there and it'd be great if you take a look at it and
Okay.
make comments. It specifically is talking about, I mean, the definition doesn't allow for, you know, building municipal building. That's not open space.
They have one page in there that shows like what are considered conserved lands. And then it has this other category that says like municipal recreational, and that those were not included in their
Open space.
open space. plans.
So would that help us with this public areas question that Noah just asked?
Well, we have a definition. And the definition in the original thing that the council approved
Mhm.
is that linkages, buffers, and additions to conservation or other public lands. First of all, you know, notice that it's an addition to an existing public area they're talking about here. And these lands include parcels that connect to or abut conservation or public lands or private lands. Buffer lands are those which afford an extra level of protection. So when we did this,
Mhm.
right or wrong, you know, I mean,
Mhm. It was adding to
It was adding to,
conservation
yeah,
land.
so
Yeah.
add to the land around the schools as, but for public land, yes. No, add to land around the school so you can expand the schools, that's not, was not the intention. Of course, the council can override.
Yeah, yeah,
There's nothing in the entire bonding process that requires the council to not use that money for public use. But they've never defined public use as being municipal buildings, so. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I know
but
there's
I
like,
think it's-
for, when it comes to schools, I know that, you know, the state has sort of guidelines as to how many acres of land you should have for each student to be able to go outside or whatever, you know, I don't know, and I don't know the details of any of that. So, but to have a conservation land next to a school would be awesome for the science and biology teachers.
Oh, yeah, no.
You know, so,
In the open space plan, you know, they designated the municipal. Building areas, schools, and this area and all that with a special designation.
Yeah.
So that it's conserved space, but it's built.
yeah, yeah. The only thing I've always been concerned about is these contract zones where, for instance, the Piper Shores has a contract zone that they were, you know, gonna set this side, you know, and the council used that as an argument for the benefits to the community. The set aside of land was a benefit to the community. That's great. But if they can change that later on and build more buildings on it, then the
Is that
original
the process?
benefit is gone.
Is that the one
So you
across the
have
street?
to put an easement on it. You have to put an easement to protect it permanently. And I think in some of those contract zones, there are no permanent easements. Although I asked somebody and someone said, oh, I think they put it on in this last one. So I don't know. I haven't really looked, but that was a concern of mine because if there's no follow through on and maybe that's what we asked about, is to try to get, I mean, in my opinion, I would love to see us be included in, okay, so we don't negotiate any easements, we don't, but when the easement is completed, that we get confirmation, like that be a sort of a, bring the circle back around. Because, you know, there's that outstanding, we've used money for the Broad Turn Road property to purchase that Habitat property, and there's no easement on that property yet. So it hasn't closed the circle yet. So I feel like somehow, I know this is kind of off tangent, but it all kind of weaves together.
No, I think that we're, as a board, making recommendations on a variety of levels. We want two alternates. We want all applications for funding to come through us. We want notification when something closes or an easement is executed. I mean, I think we've been making some housekeeping changes, and I think that falls within the framework. You know, the process isn't just necessarily evaluation, but we could include steps in the process for record keeping and, you know, I'm calling it record keeping, like when the monies are spent, we now get that.
Yeah, right.
The report, like there are ongoing things that we've identified as needs to provide transparency to the public about how this money is being spent. And you know, because it's not spent when we make a recommendation, it's, you know, it could be a year later, and that we formalize how we track that. I think we're tracking a lot of things we've never tracked before.
I mean, some
As we
might
look
argue
through
it's
the-
none of our business,
Oh, I
but that might
disagree.
feel like it's not doing our job to be the stewards of the money.
Right.
If we don't see the first circle closed.
Never had this much before, that's a problem. You know, I mean, now you can start to worry about schools. And when we were talking about $1 million, we didn't have to worry about it because you can't do anything with schools for $1 million. It's like saying you can do $10,000 worth of work on your house. It just doesn't exist anymore. You know? So unless you do it yourself badly. But so yeah, it's a new world in that regard. There isn't anything in our charge or anything that prevents this money from being used that way. I do think that it can't be counted towards the state for, for school funding. If they use this money, then they couldn't count the cost of the land into the school building budget and all of that. So that might be something that will hold it back, but honestly. I
No,
really-
why is it? Why
really
do you
doubt
think,
they're going to,
yeah, why do you think that they couldn't
well, they're
use it?
applying to the state for the cost, and so you no longer have the cost of the land if it's funded through another account process. But, you know, that's irrelevant really, because Scarborough isn't getting money from the state anymore anyhow, and we never will.
When-
Especially with our new valuation, we'll never get school again unless the state fundamentally changes the amount and the way they evaluate towns. Because we're one of the highest income, highest, level towns in the state, one of the top 5 or something. It's ridiculous because of our water. And it's talk about Piper Shores, with the valuation of all that, it's everything else, it's incredible. So, so anyway, I don't think there's any formal protection there when we talk about that kind of thing. But it is talking about adding to existing. So hopefully there's some protection.
And what about this active, so we're hoping that. So you left for a second, but we're thinking that the originals, well, not thinking, but we know that the original talked about adding to existing conservation in public areas, and that under the definitions, the public areas are conservation areas that are already protected.
Yeah.
But what about active recreation?
Well, we define active recreation, doesn't include.
We have a
organized
definition of that
sports.
as well.
Well, we list a bunch of things, liking and walking, etc.
So that's a really slippery slope in some ways, and I can give you an example. I spend an enormous amount of time at Wiley Field every fall. And so if on one hand, we're saying we don't want to use this money to buy ball fields. Well, at Wiley Field, there's also a walking path that goes around it that people are constantly walking their dogs on. And during duck hunting season, there are so many duck hunters that park there, walk through the fields and access the marsh. So it's providing public access to natural resources. While also, 2/3 of it providing ball fields. And so those are things that I think absolutely fall in the criteria of the things that we talk about as being really valuable, right?
And well, that's why we had it in the first place.
And that's. What could,
But could they just buy just the field? In other words. I'm trying to think of
Well,
a
that's the
good
reason we have
example.
there's the reason we have active recreation in there.
Yeah.
And I mean, we should look at these things and have a chance to talk about them, and that's what we do.
Yeah.
We have the ability with, we can't look at the tool or exact wording of things like this and say, that answers all the questions. It doesn't. I think our purpose is to answer those questions and make a recommendation to the
Yeah.
council. If we look at it and we talk to people and we find that, wow, there's multiple uses here, not just ball fields. That's pretty cool, and we think this is a real plus.
I think
that's
that's
our role.
It totally is our role, but again, I'm gonna be real blunt about, what about just ball fields?
so behind Dunstan Tap and Table, there's a parcel in that original development plan that was supposed to be soccer fields, and it's leveled. But has never become soccer fields. So what if the developer says, I'm no longer gonna do that, community services comes to here and say, we want to buy this
Yeah, this is what I'm talking,
2-acre parcel
yes,
that's flat.
exactly,
They want to turn it into just soccer fields or
Yes.
whatever,
yes,
that's,
that's the example that I'm talking.
yeah, so
that's
that's a real life scenario, right? Where
Yeah.
That could happen.
Does that abut any conservation or nothing?
No, nothing,
Really, so,
no-
so
nothing.
that's my question is,
Active recreation. I mean, that would fall under active recreation. Right?
well, it didn't under our original,
Right.
original definition.
I
But
think we
that was
have
questioned.
spirited discussion, and it is up to our purview. I don't know if changing the framework would address
We have
that
the
scenario.
definition of that.
Oh, that's
But
fine.
regardless of what our recommendation is, the town council can vote
Exactly.
one way, in any way, right? We just make a recommendation, so.
Okay. Active recreation areas are lands such as ball fields that have been significantly altered that require ongoing maintenance for use and enjoyment of the public. Passive recreations are lands that are generally unimproved, but maybe,
All right, right. I mean, that was deliberate.
there you go.
I mean, there was no way that the council at the time was gonna approve this if the money couldn't ostensibly be used for ball fields at some time.
Yeah.
But, we haven't, but I think honestly, that was more because there wasn't capacity. So let's, and now I hear, that's the first I've heard about this. And so, I think we're going to be faced with it. Either that or we won't be faced with it because it won't even be brought to us. I mean, if they want a soccer field behind tap and table, they're gonna put a soccer field behind tap and table. If they're looking for some sort of public cover from us, I mean, they're not gonna get it because our process, we would look at it and say, yes, there's value in a soccer field in that part of town. But other than that, there's no conservation value in having a soccer field. Or maybe we'll look at it and say, there's a soccer field, but also people go out hunt behind, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think it's bad if we get to look at it. I kind of hope we get to look at these as opposed to having to just do it like that.
So the town.
Well, we
council
have a
could-
town's council liaison now. I don't think there's going to be a scenario where Karen doesn't come back to us and say, town council is voting on this, right? And then we make a recommendation. We don't necessarily have to wait for them to ask us for a recommendation if we're aware that they're considering the funds for that. We can take it upon ourselves to make a recommendation.
It's true, but I'd rather, if we have a town council.
I'd rather they ask
liaison,
us.
I'd rather they bring it to us. I think our charges that things like this should be brought to us, whether it's brought by the council or an individual landowner. But I understand, I think it would be good if we knew about these things. I think it could be, what we're talking about is unfortunately very possible because of the amount of bonding that's available. Hate to see that happen, but
And
You
the
think
the
they
cost of
want-
land.
I was just gonna say, you think they want to say, well, and this was run by a volunteer committee and. That there was some agreement from the community, you would think they would want that, rather than just acting.
oh, they can get that.
Well, and they get the
mean,
public
They'll have-
comments.
They get
They'll
public
have-
comments.
Community services will have already has a committee. So if the committee says that this is a good idea for a ball field is available, et cetera, et cetera. Now, their role isn't to worry about where the funding comes from, but they would be making a formal recommendation.
And we could request a joint meeting with the Community Services Committee.
If it comes to that, if it's brought to us. I think I think it's a good discussion. It's good that we had this discussion, but I think we also shouldn't try to anticipate all of the potential issues that come up because we have more money.
Right.
I think formalizing our framework, like our process, makes sense in the coming year. And then my second question is related to the open space plan. Because we have two members of the committee. Is there anything should we, as a board, review the open space plan for consistency with?
We should review it definitely for consistency with our evaluation
Yes.
process, because they make a major recommendation that we, as a town, have an evaluation process.
Okay,
And have a land reserve fund, essentially, I mean, they recommend virtually all the same things that the 1999 open space plan did. Because they're good, they know what they're doing. And so we definitely need to review on that basis. I'm not uncomfortable with anything that they're recommending. They're not talking
Yeah, so
about,
it'd be consistent.
yeah. And they're talking about conservation, right? I mean, their focus is, and when you look at what they're focused on, it's conservation. It's not public areas. It includes public access trails and things like that are big. But not public buildings and stuff like that. It's
Does
not
it-
part of it, because that's just not open space by their definition.
Does the recommendations include also filtering into the planning board processes with
Oh, yeah.
developers and stuff?
Very
Yeah,
much.
okay.
Oh, yeah, very, wait till you see it. I
Yeah, I'll
mean,
look at it.
it's, although it's very, very similar, if you look back to the
To the old one?
old one, it's very similar. They're recommending a lot of the same things.
Oh, okay,
What's different now is that Autumn is, open to
yeah,
trying to,
figure things out.
yeah, make
Yeah.
things work and do things better. I was kind of impressed with her in the meetings, with her approach to these as opposed to being defensive or whatever. I mean, she's straightforward. She's a very straightforward person. She sat there and said, well, this is gonna be really difficult to do.
Right.
But, so there are quite a few recommendations regarding the planning process. And there are a number related to land acquisition. And I didn't see anything in there that isn't actually covered by what we do. But it'll help us in this process to look at what they're doing, what they're recommending, and see how well we match up. Or if there's anything else we need to add or subtract.
And it's consistent with the Conservation Commission too.
Yep.
The goals.
When
Well, you
is it slated to be finalized? I think that, so my proposal is that when the open space plan is finalized, we as a board go through and identify where it connects to our work, what we can formalize in our process, what we can include, that we really go through the plan as a board and are consistent.
Supposed to be February.
Okay.
Maybe
It's
February,
finalized, yeah.
I think so. I don't know the dates. I would say that, well, it's irrelevant because of our ability to meet. I mean, I think if we had a meeting in February to do that. The problem is we may have an evaluation to do in March. We don't want to be trying to do this too. Because it's gonna take a full meeting to go through and just look at this stuff,
Yeah,
even
that's
looking
good.
at just the stuff that appears to overlap with us.
Yeah.
So
But we
are
could do that in February easily.
folks in favor, that would be a workshop, right?
It doesn't matter if it's finalized, by the way, excuse me. I
Okay,
mean,
sorry.
The reason,
cut you
the
off.
reason I was saying that was that we could do it today. Because I don't think that aspect of the plan is going to change much. I think where outside comments are really going to be coming in is in regards to planning stuff. Because it's pretty detailed about, making planning more conservation, open space oriented.
And already we saw with wetlands, so, yes.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, if you have not already commented to the town council about whatever your opinions are on the proposed wetland regulations, I encourage you. They are, they very much want to hear from citizens. So
Could you just quickly say what the changes are?
the changes are a minimum 25-foot buffer around all wetlands for development.
And what is current?
Well, actually, that, about 81% of like develop already kind of follows that. So it really only, it's a small percentage of potential remaining developable lands. That could apply to this one way or the other.
And it's new construction.
It's new construction, that's right, nothing post hoc. And so that small percent, is. Yeah, is kind of what's in play right now.
And is it because of the federal regulations that changed?
Not at all.
Regulatory regulations are about to change
Yes,
Oh, they're about.
they are, but,
to become more stringent.
yeah, this 25 feet is.
Yeah.
Is very low.
But I thought
And,
that it was already, I guess I always
I
thought it
thought-
was
yeah, I thought we
25
had-
foot already.
No,
We had a much
there's-
bigger buffer.
So did I.
No.
Well, I know wasn't it 250 feet from a resource protection zone?
Yes, and that's where that 81% is like, that's already kind of
Okay.
spoken for. And there's also significant vernal pool.
Yeah.
Buffers and things like that. And so these are largely, what we're really talking about here are freshwater wetlands.
Yeah,
That are sort of isolated. And so we're speaking to how much we value them or not,
okay.
fundamentally. That's what we're talking, like,
Can you imagine in this day and age going out and buying a brand new house that's built inside of 20 feet from a pond?
I mean, it would be crazy.
I mean, that's nuts.
you say that, but
Yeah.
there's significant
I know.
disagreement about that.
I mean, Florida is still developing very, very rapidly.
Yeah.
Even in spite of the fact that the whole place is sinking
But we don't want to be.
and the water's rising.
Yeah, 25 feet was not the initial proposal to,
75 feet was, what was?
yeah,
It was a
100.
it was a tiered system.
Oh.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
so
already
we-
been compromised, is what you're saying.
significant.
Yes.
There is a lack of understanding, particularly on the council, but of what, you know, of how the water flows occur, and how water quality is affected by runoff from homes around things like isolated ponds or streams that are way up above the rivers. There's I don't know if it's deliberate or just a willingness to suspend belief that, you know, cars sitting in driveways wash stuff into streams, and those end up in the marsh. But a member of the council responded to me when I wrote and said, you know, that there are a number of members of the council who just really don't buy that. They don't buy that there's an effect on water quality of building homes and stuff.
Facts are not facts anymore.
Inside.
Do we want a February meeting?
Yes, please.
So anyway, we certainly could do that, you know, we need to do that at a meeting at some point, but there's no reason to wait until the plan's formalized for us to do our part. I don't.
Okay, so are people thinking February, or because we're gonna hold March for a likely application? So February for the open space plan.
I would recommend that we do either February or April, because I think there's going to be some pressure on our, whoever our council is. It's still going to be the same.
I'm not sure
Maybe
that's
not.
been
Just
formally,
about the time people figure out what's going on, we get somebody new.
so how are
so-
people feeling about that?
I think there's gonna be some pressure on all committees to do the open space plan or to evaluate how it fits into what they do.
To start implementing.
Right, right. So we need to show that we're moving on it.
I'll make a motion that we have a meeting in February. I don't think we need a motion for that, but
I'm happy to meet in February. I just would ask that we not meet during February school vacation week.
And that is,
Do you know?
Yeah,
can't remember.
that
That
is
is
the
not
week of
something
the
I-
17th.
okay,
It's a little later this year.
Yeah.
so we would have a Thursday, the 6th, or Thursday, this 13th, or the 27th.
Yeah.
I say the 6th.
For me, the 6th is better. I'm away the 13th, I'm sorry.
I'm away from the 11th to the 25th. So the 6th.
So the 6th
So
is
the
better for you
6th,
as well.
and how much? Do we think that an hour and a half will be sufficient, or do we want to try to block 2 hours? I know that's a significant commitment, but we get an open space plan every 20 years, so.
Hmm.
The alternative, if it works better for people, is to go to April. I don't think we have to, I don't think we're going to have. What's your feeling, Nicole? Do you think there's,
Oh,
Just
right, because
ask
we
a
won't
few
have the
cents.
new staff liaison.
yeah, well, but not just that, just that, you know, yes, there's going to be pressure on us to do our job and look at the open space plan and evaluate how what we do fits with it. But whether that's done in February or April,
I do think it would be helpful if our new staff liaison was at that meeting,
I'd rather.
and that would put us in April.
And we'd probably have a new council meeting too, and that would be helpful. So, because I want the council person, me, I personally, I would
Yeah.
prefer the council. I think the committee should not do this unless the council liaison, because it's going to be a fantastic learning experience for whoever that person is.
I mean, I know we're eager, but I think that it makes sense that our permanent liaisons are able to attend.
I mean, realistically, this committee, I'm just saying this out, this is my own thing here, no special knowledge. My own feeling is that when you get a brand new thing like this open space plan, if we demonstrate that we are building it into our thought process, our activity process over the next 6 months, golden. Because there are gonna be committees in town that aren't gonna be able to do it that quickly. Planning board won't build anything in the next 6 months. We'll be lucky if they built stuff in the next 2 years.
Well, it's gonna all go to ordinance.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that
Takes
yeah.
forever. So, you know, yes, there'll be some pressure to move, but it's not gonna be, yeah, you have to have this done next Friday. So,
So there's an April vacation also. Do we know when April vacation is?
Yeah, it's the week of the 21st.
Oh, okay. So our Thursdays in April, the 3rd, the 10th, and the 17th.
Third, please.
April 3rd?
Works for me.
Works for me.
And are we looking at an hour and a half or a 2-hour session? Because if it's a workshop, I think this can be our only item. And so I'm thinking we do a workshop on the 3rd for. Sorry, no, is that
It's-
problematic?
I have a conference the next day. I just don't know when I'm leaving for the conference, but if it's in the morning, I can try to go in the afternoon. If I'm driving to it. It's far away, but I can. So if we could just meet in the morning, that's.
Do we want to try it 8, 9, 10? Are we?
9.
If we can meet, is 9 okay with folks' schedules? If that's,
Oh, yeah.
I can.
Go earlier. if it'll help.
9 o'clock.
We'll even go 8, but
Whatever you guys, I mean,
you're gonna have to bring coffee if
it's
we
okay.
do 8.
On April, do we want 8? We've done 8 before.
Or 9, I don't care.
9, okay, 9 o'clock, April 3rd, we'll get a room.
Yes.
Hopefully, we'll be at town hall.
Hopefully.
So is the February one not scheduled then, or is it both scheduled?
I thought we were gonna wait for our liaisons.
I don't think it's a good idea for us to review the open space plan and how it affects us without, when we're going to get 2 new
Too new.
liaisons. It's such a great learning process.
And a new member.
And a new member.
And a
yeah.
new member.
Oh, and a new member too.
Yeah. Do we want to invite anybody in addition to these 2 folks from the Open Space Planning Committee?
Yeah, can we invite like Jamie or Autumn? Or you said Autumn?
Oh, well, Autumn's our plan.
She's, the planning board.
Right,
Or-
well, sustainability and planning.
Jamie would be helpful.
I think that we,
Jamie, I'd go with, I wouldn't bring in any of the consultants. I mean, they're,
No,
oh, no, I just meant if we bring in town staff who,
oh, Jamie would be great. Oh, super. If she can do it, yeah. Perfect.
is there
do we want Jamie and Autumn or?
Sure.
We can always
At
ask.
least Jamie, sure.
is
That was
there
a no.
Yes.
I wouldn't bother Autumn. I don't think anything that applies to us is overlapping with what she's doing. To any real degree. It's so ordinate, all the stuff that they're talking about that has to do with planning, and there's a lot of it. Is, as Noah mentioned just a few minutes ago, it ends up being so ordinance based. What do we have for ordinances now? What don't we? What could we? What have we tried? But our stuff, I mean, if we run into anything like that, we can follow up with it. But I don't think we're going to.
So when it comes to implementing the open space plan, I wonder if there's any value to having the once or twice a year joint meeting with the Conservation Commission. Because they're also going to be trying to look at how to implement it. And so, I mean, we can have our meeting, but I just wonder if after that, then we, I mean, I'm on it, but it's still, I just think there might be value to looking at it together
I think after the April meeting,
after the.
and we can talk to Randy about that.
Yeah. When it comes to implementation, I think the more we can align what we're doing. The better.
And what do you mean by align with the Conservation Commission? See, our role is very specific. We're not a commission that has
We
a
make
broad purview for conservation for the town.
Yeah, but all we do is make recommendations too.
All we do is make very, very particular recommendations
Yeah.
regarding, application of bond funding, pieces of property. Meeting with the Conservation Commission to talk about the potential value as we're evaluating properties, yeah. If, because any input we get in that regard is really useful. But we don't have to align with them as much as maybe utilize their expertise.
Sure.
Tremendous. But from the standpoint of our role, we need to be a little outside, or my personal belief is that we should stand a little outside of the Conservation Commission. We shouldn't be, we're already lumped too often in minds of councilors and others as with conservation. And that's, our role isn't conservation. Our role is to spend money for conservation in a very quantitative way. We really evaluate and say, yes, this is a good application. But they could give us good input.
I have to hold myself back all the time, trying to do the planning stuff, like, it's like, get it, when the developers come, that's when you conserve the land properly. And then I have to come back and Doug says, Sue, that's not your fault. But I think we could meet with them for sure,
There's always value.
yeah.
And we're doing evaluations, there's value in getting expertise.
So we have about 15 minutes. I think what we have left on the agenda are discussion development materials for the transition documents and the Parks and Conservation Storybook, and then items for the next agenda. I don't know if folks want to table the discussion of the transition documents and the storybook.
I'd rather not. Because I have stuff. No, I volunteered to do this. I'm gonna
You
give it out.
did volunteer to do that.
We do not have to spend time talking about this today. People can look at this. This is not a finished document. This is a discussion document. That's all it is. That I have. All right, so in looking at this, there's essentially an outline to that I went by, and that outline, because I don't have to cover this here at all. If we're looking at orienting anyone to what we're doing, who is committed to being part of it. So this isn't intended to be a let the public know basically what we do sort of document. It's more in depth than that. But it's also an attempt to not inundate a new person coming in with stuff that they don't need right away.
Maggie, you're our guinea pig.
Yeah.
So first of all, what do people need to know if they're coming on board? This is just my thought process. You guys can write it up, change it, whatever. History of the municipal bond support for land acquisition in Scotland. So, I mean, what is it? We just went through this in the fall, educating a whole bunch of people about this. But the bottom line is, you need to do that. The role of Parks and Conservation Land Board, what's our role in this process of acquiring land using public funds? What's our evaluation process? What is the state of actual municipal bonding for land purchases? And what are the current land acquisition and current Parks and Conservation Land Board activities are going? So we can add to this, subtract from this. My feeling is that we need to give people a certain level of information and in these various things without getting to the point where they just ignore it. So giving them too big a book, some individuals will read it, some individuals won't. But if we can give them a book that's not too bad. So anyway, what we have to go with this and what this packet is showing you is I need you guys to look through. I gave mine to Scott.
sorry.
No, you're not sorry, it's yours. I gave it to you. So part one would be the acquisition evaluation process. This is formally submitted in January of 2003. It's this book right here. It has all of the details associated with why this acquisition process was,
Do we know where that lives? I asked Todd
It
to
lives
get.
on my computer.
Does everybody have one?
Because I
No,
asked
it,
to get one for Maggie and he said, okay, I gotta find it. And then he never got one for her because I think, do you have one?
well,
I think every member should have.
wait a minute, you
I have
don't
the
have,
file. I have the file. I can put
I
the
think
file
it's
out.
right up, I think it's on there.
I'm pretty sure it's on our.
It's on,
shared
it's
drive.
definitely on our shared drive, but I thought you meant like the actual Word documents are on my computer.
I think
but
what we
not-
need is these things printed out. I mean, we
Yes.
need to have the town print out copies of what we're putting together here, and this would be the major part of it.
We'll check and see.
Because it
afterwards.
covers the first, it covers the first three parts of that little outline are covered in here in detail. As you go through, you'll see. It includes the detailed evaluation form, it includes the benchmark properties that we originally developed. It includes all the definition. So this is really the key to understanding
Yeah.
who we are and what we are. It talks about our charge, how the Parks and Conservation Land, why it was formed, and how it was formed and what its role is.
I
Which is the charge.
utilize it a lot, and that's why I want to make sure it's available electronically and that each new member gets the binder.
So in this little thing I gave you, the outline of this book is there on the second page. This is the cover page. But you can see the range of stuff that's in here. It's pretty cool. We don't have to revise the document per se, but from the standpoint of our using it with our members, we can revise it as we need to. We can't revise it formally without going to council, but we can revise things. You know, we look in there and say, well, don't include this, include this. I mean, that's fine. But we need to get it to our own members first, so we'll have to get that done.
To that,
So-
to that end, I do want to volunteer for that role, since it lies on my computer. That I wouldn't mind updating it, throughout this year until I end. And just get it, but it's right now, it's in a PDF form. You guys could all look at it, but, I think it would be pretty. I'm not gonna say easy, but it wouldn't be that
Worthwhile.
difficult. What's that?
Worthwhile.
Worthwhile to go through and just
Yeah.
update a few little
Yeah,
things.
oh, absolutely.
But not-
Oh, I
okay.
think there's lots of stuff that should be updated for use when I look through it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for
I
example,
say lots, I don't mean rewrite the whole book, but I
Yeah.
mean, you know,
Add
Just
some.
add,
detail
add
in
it
it,
and,
add a-
and to take away some
Take
things
away
that
some
just
things that are like,
we
yeah,
don't do. you
Yeah.
know,
right, yeah,
Not
okay,
not
Yep.
meaningful.
Okay.
So, as I say, the first three, the history, the role, the evaluation process is all in this book. And then go to what is the state of funding? And part one would be the little green tab, which is our own by the numbers. I didn't photocopy this because it's two-sided and it uses every color in the book. And it would cost me like $15,000 to do it on my own home computer, so on my printer. But so that would be next, would be our by the numbers sheet. And then the thing after that would be the conservation purchases sheet that originally was developed by Scott. I'm really grateful for that. And we use this, of course, this fall. This also we can take out I can take out the shading and all that, because I took Scott's stuff and then developed it for this purpose. But this is neat because it shows the properties, it shows when we did them, it shows the relative dollars. It also shows what the conservation values, quote unquote, are, which is really helpful. Yeah, trying to figure out what's going on.
It's missing some things.
We better make sure that we get this right, so, yeah. So we'll have to,
If any and all of this documentation should be public as well, we can.
think
upload
it
to
is.
The
Yeah,
webpage, I wasn't sure. The only thing I saw was by the numbers, which looked like an infographic,
yes,
It is.
and that's
which looks,
new,
yeah, recent, yeah.
So
and we want to
then what
update
happened
that.
to all the other stuff that was up there? All this is in there.
Oh, no, on the public, the town.
Oh,
website.
on that website,
Yeah.
yeah, gotcha.
So I'm
No,
just
no,
any.
we have a whole
piece
different problem.
Should
Oh.
go on there, or you felt like
Gotcha.
it would have value on there, then.
Okay, I see,
So on the PCLB landing page on the town's website,
Gotcha.
the by numbers,
Gotcha.
it's there now.
gotcha.
so we would have the acquisition evaluation process document, we would have the by the numbers document, we would have the what has been bought document, and that includes all the conservation values associated with that, so people can learn from that. And then I thought that the conservation map, public and open space lands should be out there, although this should come from the open space plan, so that we're
Yes.
consistent. I hope they're the same, but this was the latest copy that I got from the Land Trust, but There is a version in the open space. Now, we can include with our stuff that people have to read the open space plan and ask them and, you know, send them to it or whatever, but I didn't print out open space plan stuff to go in there.
As an appendix, I think the open space plan should be an appendix.
Yeah, but I would see the open space plan as from the, I mean, I would say that it's really important that anyone on our committee or working with our committee, you know, become familiar with the open space plan, no question. But they should also become familiar with what the Conservation Commission does and all those sorts of things too, so you get into a lot of stuff, but I wanted them to understand what we do with this material.
Who made the map in the, open space plan, conservation map?
Well, I believe they took, did they get the basic, for the open space plan, do you know, did they get the basic map from Andrew and then?
We sent in what we had, the information we had on conservation lands in the town, and then it was mixed with what the town had, and so it's,
It's a conglomeration.
yeah.
I don't know for sure. I don't know whether the stuff that came from the land trust, the parts of the, you know, map was updated by people in town. But anyway, that'd be the most up to date, quote unquote, would be the one in the space plan, because they just finished that in November.
Yep.
December. They have a bunch of really cool maps showing, you know, for the various conservation criteria, habitat, water quality, etc., what that means in terms of open space. Really valuable stuff to look at for anyone who's concerned about conservation in the town. What is wonderful about it is that if you look at this map and you know where the rivers are, you know, you can see the areas that are conserved based on, you know, it's based on water flows. There's no question. And when you look at their map, what they're saying is the most valuable open space in Scarborough follows this. So our purchases that we've made with the help of the land trust, and some of the ones that the town has made in the conservation areas similar adjacent Wiley Field, have been very consistent with what that map looks like. It's incredible. They overlay almost perfectly. So
we've been doing our job.
we've been doing a really good job. Now, to be fair, we weren't making it up as we went because we had an open space plan back then.
Yeah.
We didn't have the fancy overlays, GIS capabilities.
Is it all digital, or do they actually have hard copies? For us for April, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I don't know what it means, what it takes to get a hard copy of anything in this town.
I know.
Yeah, I think it's all digital.
Okay.
I mean, it's digital, but I think the concept of staff time printing stuff off is a little difficult.
Yeah, that's what I wondered if they had some actual books.
But they'll be in PDF value, so they should be printed off. It would be really valuable because the printed things, it's nice to be able to look up there, but the printed ones allow you to really put some maps side by side into these things.
Yeah.
I know you can do that digitally too, but I'm too old. Yeah, it's really nice. We need printed copies.
It's just, I mean, I was using the magnifying glass to try to.
Yeah.
You know, so the quality of the print is also something.
But I will say that I was impressed by two things. One, that we've done a pretty good job over the last 20 years. And two, that the people who did this plan knew what they were doing. And the consultants they used they utilized the input they got from all the various sources. I thought they did a very good job.
So next steps, or for the April meeting, we need to find the underlying files for I'm calling it the binder, and get 2 hard copies. One for Maggie, or 3, one for Maggie, no, probably more. We need hard copies for all members who don't, and members
You never got a binder.
who don't have.
No one ever got a binder.
So
I think there might actually have some extra binders over there. We could ask Tody, she might.
we just need binders for everybody. We also need hard copies of the open space plan for everyone, because I anticipate we're gonna sit down and we're going through it. Sort of.
Well, that was my question. Are we gonna do it?
Are we gonna do
Digitally.
it for this? February workshop.
No, we're gonna do it in April.
The April is the workshop.
Oh, the April, you're right.
The April
If
workshop.
they're not officially professionally printed, community services can make sure to have
Yes.
some printed copies.
We don't need, I wasn't talking about professional printed stuff.
No.
It's just that it's so hard to get, because this was never.
I didn't know if they would. It's so
This
pretty.
was-
I would think that they might
Yeah,
get it
that
all
was not
bound up.
professional, that's right.
I mean, it's just, it's just a matter of getting the quality.
Yep.
Copies.
Because we're
Yeah,
gonna
fine.
literally be comparing definitions on some pages and things like that, so we just.
Right.
We're gonna, as a board, go through it in detail. We need hard copies of
Definitely.
both for all members. What? We also wanna have. Sorry, in the hot spot, we'll wanna have any pieces. That we're gonna review, the. Draft finals. So we wanna make sure we've got the most up to date.
I'll update that spreadsheet. Make sure that everything is there.
Because we
There are so many
may,
I have so many versions. of
Exactly.
Scott's original spreadsheet.
Yes.
Well, and also it was,
Cool.
yeah,
I'll run it by Scott, other people,
was originally.
you guys,
Yeah.
and just take a look and see if there's anything that. It's not there. I can review myself too. Just got so many versions.
and everybody take a look at these draft materials, if there are pieces of information we want included. Share with Doug in advance. Because there are multiple versions, and so it might be in one version, not the other, it's just getting it there.
Thanks for doing this, Doug.
It's great.
Thank you.
There's a couple things on this, just looking at this spreadsheet that are so shocking to me in terms of the value. I mean, look at the price that the land trust paid for Warren Woods. $300,000.
That actually was, I think that was a bargain purchase.
It was bargain purchase.
Fuller Farm?
Even as a bargain
No,
purchase.
Oh.
I mean, it's just,
The
like,
Warren Woods.
Partially.
Oh.
Warren Woods, they took
by
a-
the owner.
yeah,
They took a
just unbelievable.
very
You
substantial.
know, unbelievable
tax
to
write-off.
Yeah.
how what an incredible resource
Now
that
we-
has become
We ended up
like,
buying for
essentially free. almost.
Value.
600,000, but even then,
Just
that's-
crazy.
it's an astounding piece of property for 600,000, whatever. It's just, but prices have just gone so nuts. That, you know, the world the
Anything
world has
else?
totally changed.
Strike you,
I
I'll tell you what strikes me.
can't believe, I don't understand how the Clay Pits Road parcel got so cheap. Last year. That's nuts.
I don't understand where the Clay Pits Road came from.
Are there any other items for the next agenda?
Well, that's two items right there. That this Broad Turn Road, I really think we need to follow through on it and try to get an easement executed for Broad Turn Road. I mean, at least remind the council that that hasn't been executed. And what is Clay Pits Road one that you folks brought to us?
We did not go.
Yeah.
Land bond.
Yeah, if you look on
So
there-
if you notice in the column under.
Oh,
There's no-
I see. So you guys paid 100% of it.
Yeah. so it's not funny.
Okay, so really, if this is including only land bond funds, then this should be taken out of there, probably.
Well, I think that's a discussion, what does and doesn't.
We can have that discussion. I don't agree with that, though. I think all these things should be included. And as part
That's
of the
why I said-
discussion with a new member, I think that's what you're saying. right?
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
Part of the discussion with a new member, what is different? What are?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's,
Yes.
that's
Somebody
great.
says
That's great. I approve. I mean, I agree.
So for example, there are some pieces, a new, some relatively new, is that the town has donated some properties to the land trust and we review those. And they're not all conservation. I mean, that's something that we want to include in this binder that isn't included and should be reflected in any pieces we create.
On this too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm just saying that there are new things that we're doing as a board that we need to have reflected in the materials we generate.
So.
To your question about the March meeting, I am hesitant, if the land trust is bringing a parcel, then
Oh,
Let's hold it, let's
That-
hold it for,
that's gotta be our priority.
Yeah.
I agree.
Let's try to be efficient and focused.
and we know that in advance because any application needs to go through GIS first, so we'll let you know if any of that changes.
So somehow I'd like to keep moving on this. So-
Absolutely.
So I'd love to get comments on this sheet with these properties where people have questions.
Yes.
so that we can get those resolved. I can work with Scott on what he knows, I can work with town on what they know. And we can try to get this into a form that's usable, so,
Are you open to people contacting you directly?
oh, yeah. Yeah. I can get people a digital copy of this, too, I'll put a digital copy out on the shared drive.
Let's start a folder. And
I- I-
add
Transition-
a
transition
transition
documents.
documents folder.
Because I also have this, I have a PDF of this also. so
Yes,
I can
we
put it
want-
out there too, so.
I think it's.
Because we need it printed and so community services needs to be able to access the.
Can you send me the link to the shared drive?
I can't give you access. Micah can give you access. He hasn't given you
You
access
haven't got
yet.
it yet?
Okay. That's on
I
my
thought
list.
it's usually, oh, it was always in, oh my gosh.
I can send you the link, but I can't, I don't,
Community service.
I don't
You guys-
Maybe he
control
has an
permissions.
Do you guys get access being part of the commission, the conservation commission?
Have you used Google Drive?
Do you
with-
use
Yeah,
with the conservation commission?
Yeah.
You
we
used
have
it? Then you already have it.
Okay.
There's a Parks and Conservation folder.
and
Is
she
it-
can
is-
go into our committee too?
Well, I don't know.
That's,
I don't know.
I
yet.
assume, no. no,
I'll
maybe
send you
not.
the link and if the link doesn't work, we know who to go to.
we know who to go to. Could be, I just.
It always
Eh.
came from Todd. The
Oh, it
link,
did.
the link there
Okay.
came every month in the materials that didn't send us in Todd's email.
Okay.
After this meeting closes out, I was just asking Jessica if we could look right now on the drive to
Yeah.
see it.
So we're past time, so I
Yeah,
think,
so I get,
Okay.
I get.
Yeah,
the-
exactly.
sorry.
as always, we have a lot of time.
Motion
So,
to adjourn?
second. Adjourn.
Nice to see you all. Happy New
Okay.
Year.
Thanks a lot, no,